Good evening and welcome to a new episode of our program, The Daily Debate. It's Wednesday evening. I'm Yasmin Bakir. Tonight we're going to be shedding light on Egypt's persistent efforts to fight COVID-19 amid the regional crisis. And of course, since the pandemic broke down, and it's of course a global crisis, many countries have been struggling to balance and maintain between taking care of the health of the public, finding the appropriate medical protocols for the patients, and also ensuring that the economic cycle is still ongoing. So when we're talking about Egypt, it did prove to be a very great example of handling the crises, although it's on a population of 100 million people, and although it was one of the fewest, if not the only country that did not go for an 100% close down or lockdown. But today we're going to be shedding light on the means that needs to be undertaken in this perspective to be able to make better public health services, to be able to better educate and teach the citizens on how to maintain these precautionary measures, to be able to develop the medical protocols, where Egypt has been one of the best countries to formulate a protocol that fits this pandemic that nobody up until this day knows exactly how to stop it. With the vaccinations being publicly on hold, many countries are already inoculating their population. Egypt is also very keen to ensure that the Egyptian citizens are inoculated, bringing in and contracting with the different major companies that are holding these inoculations. We've seen a percentage of the population already being inoculated, especially those vulnerable, those elderly people who are working in the public sector, schools, medical health sectors, and even now ordinary citizens are signing up in a very organized way. So we're going to be talking about all this in this medical and health sector regard. But before we kick off, let's take a look at the first top story of this evening. And the president had returned back from his official visit in France, and President Hegazy returned home on Wednesday, concluding an official visit to France where he had discussed ways of enhancing bilateral relations in all fields and also tackling international and regional issues. Now, during his visit, the president met with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, where both leaders discussed the bilateral relations and the different international issues of common concern. There was on Monday, on the sidelines of the France-held conference for supporting Sudan's transitional period and funding African Economy Summit, the president had called for putting an end to the ongoing conflict between the Palestinians and Israelis immediately, and that's also part of a major concern by Egypt regarding the Middle East peace file. The president also affirmed Egypt is always exerting efforts in this regard, saying he hopes to end this conflict exists as long for all of us who are working together on this regard. Now, on Tuesday, during the trilateral summit with France, Jordan in Paris, President announced that he'll be allocating $500 million as part of an Egyptian initiative for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. President Sisi participated also in financing the African Economy Summit, which was held in Paris, and divided it into two sessions. That's including the external financing and debts and the private sector development, reforms and infrastructure. According to the presidential spokesperson, Ambassador Bassam Radi, El-Sisi did also say and call on the international community to provide the necessary support needed by the African states to counter the coronavirus pandemic. For more on the conclusion and the outcomes of the president's visit to France, and it was a very heavy agenda, if I may say, because a lot of important, crucial issues regarding the Middle East or the pandemic has been discussed, and seems to be that Egypt is always aligning with France on various levels, especially on the political side. We're joined over the phone with His Excellency Ambassador Mohamed Hegazy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening to you, Nani.
I would like to ask you about, we've been seeing for the past couple of days a lot of constructive meetings, press conferences. Seems to be that everybody there was aligning very much with a communique that they will be working upon in the upcoming period. If I were to ask you on how you view the entire visit from a general perspective in terms of its significance, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Nanis. Yes, true. It is a very important visit. It has many important aspects. The first was the participation of His Excellency the President in the Sudan Transitional Period Support Summit. And this very important meeting is a manifestation of the wish of Sudan to integrate in the world economy and the efforts by partner countries, mainly France, and countries like Egypt to support the transition in Sudan through enhancing its financial and economic capability. And Sudan, of course, has presented itself during this very important conference as an investment opportunities. Through which it has presented 18 very important mega projects, as well as the economic reform program. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi addressed the conference, assuring that Egypt will continue its strategic partnership with Sudan through the infrastructure program, the mutual infrastructure program, roadways, railways, as well as power grid connectivity, besides the rehabilitation of the maritime ports in Port Sudan and the navigation lines in Wadi Halfa. I don't think that anybody has contributed to the well-being and the stability of the transitional government in Sudan as Egypt, but partners like France have brought to us also another opportunity as African, as Sudanese, to further talk to our international financial institutions when they have invited the IMF, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank, among many other Arab and international funds and partners, in the second page of the presidential visit, where he has contributed to the participating in the African post-COVID economic support summit, in which President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi also expressed his view in the importance of integrating African economies in debt relief, in supporting the post-COVID era through financial and economic support, investment and trade with Africa, besides the transfer of technology and the transfer of capital to the continent as a way to confront challenges that is facing our economies, particularly the illegal immigration and terrorism. Only through investments, President said, and trade that Africa can stand against, and also through transfer of technology and bridging the digital gap, among many other calls by the President, not only in the Africa-French summit lately in Paris, but always in his participation in all international financial institutions like the G8 or the G7, the G20 yes. and the G7. He was always calling for African integration to world economy through the support of Africa economically, financially, and debt relief, and bridging the digital and technological gaps. I think the third part of this visit, as you have rightly stipulated it, which is the support to the Palestinian cause in order to cease fire and to regain control over a very difficult and escalating situation in which Israel is acting in a very unlawful way to distract the Palestinian people, infrastructure, as well as killing civilians, young children and women. So I think this is time to Egypt to act, and we have moved not only to support the Palestinian people in Gaza and in the West Bank and in Jerusalem through our political and communication with the international parties and in the Security Council, but also through the financial
yes,
and
the $500 million yes.
as well as the very important initiative of the 500 million you mentioned that will create hope
yes.
to
and
the
further
Palestinian
development.
Gaza.
Yes.
Indeed, it is a strategic development which will lead, I hope, to a reconstruction summit in Gaza, as well as moving towards a political solution to reinstate the Palestinian states and the two-state solution.
Very well, Your Excellency, Ambassador Mohamed Hegazy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for your input here on our program, The Daily Debate. And we'll be still joining you right after this break. Please stay tuned.